Hello, I'm Dr. David Pendergrass. I am a pastor with 3 degrees in biblical studies and theology and counseling, and my son has sent me some Instagram reels once again. Here we go.
Why does your hair turn white?
Because it makes me look more badass.
So why have your nails turned black?
Because it makes me look...
Wow. When I see people who do this, I think, some people, of course, have addictions that they like the endorphins that happens when they get their skin pierced. It's like people who cut, and also a lot of tattoos can be kind of addiction, the endorphins you feel. But also I immediately think of people who feel like they need attention, want to fit in, and so forth. So I see this, and I don't think bad blood. I think woundedness. I think attention seeking. I think sad. I don't mean sad, pathetic. I don't mean that at all. I don't think people aren't pathetic. I guess it could be. I don't think this person is pathetic. I just think it's sad. So I think of woundedness and like, oh, that's, I hope he's a therapist. And then, of course, to go on social media and say, why do I do that? Why do I do that? That constant meism is extremely egocentric. And so those are narcissistic tendencies that this generation really, really indulges in. And that's unfortunate. And that also is, of course, sad. But all that to say, he's maybe a lovely person. I just hope people like this would... She? He, she. Sorry, I don't know what that... But anyway, okay. That's all on that one. Okay, here's another one.
If I tell my wife, if you don't love me, I'm going to set you on fire, does she have a choice? And also, am I a loving, good husband? Those are 2 questions I want you to answer.
If you
Yeah, Paul's answer is, no, you're not. And that's it. If that's your analogy for God, then you don't understand Christianity at all. That's a profoundly bad analogy. That's disanalogous. The better analogy would be is, if I told my wife, you're convicted of a crime, and I'm the judge of the courtroom, and if she doesn't stop murdering people, she's going to jail, then she goes to jail. That's the analogy. See, atheists think they were all good people, and God's just some annoying, make-believe, stupid character and whatever. It's all these analogies fall on their face because you're following all perfect and moral good God, who is the judge of all people. And so, secondly, it's also irrelevant to see whether you have a choice. Of course they have a choice. Murderers keep murdering, and that's why I have to get them off the street, and psychopaths, sociopaths will keep doing it. Of course my wife would have a choice. I have a choice to do what I'm going to do. Free will does not disappear because we might be punished for sin. That doesn't follow. It doesn't make any sense at all. And so I hope and pray that these people start listening more to Christianity and what it really is, because this is a bad analogy.
set her on fire, then you never loved her to begin with.
And if God sends us to hell, he never loved us to begin with.
How does that follow? I mean, how does that fall in the least bit? In the least bit, if I said you're guilty of crimes, you're getting punished for it, well, then you never loved me in the first place, Dad. That doesn't make any sense. It does not follow from that receiving necessary logical and moral consequences to crimes mean the person who enacted the justice or the consequences doesn't care for your good. That's ridiculous. In fact, the exact opposite is true. I care for sociopaths and psychopaths good. If I were the judge, I'd make sure they're locked up because I love them so much they're going to be a danger to themselves and to others. I'm going to take care of you. You can't control yourself. In society, you will kill people. Well, I'm going to take care of you. I'll take care of you. And that means you can't be on the streets. So this analogy doesn't work.
Wrong.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
God does love you.
Let me ask you a question, Eric, and this is a genuine question. Just yes or no. This is not a gotcha. I just genuinely want to know. Do you have anyone in your life that you genuinely love with all your heart?
Yeah.
What would that person have to do for you to condone them being tortured for all eternity?
That's a horrible analogy.
What would that person have to do?
What choice would they have to make?
What choices would that person have to make for you to be like, you know what, the best thing could happen right now is that you get tortured forever. That would be a really good thing. What would cause you to make that choice, that decision?
Yeah, so many things I've said, so many podcasts. You'd have to demonstrate that hell is eternal torture. That in itself is a long debatable issue. Just assume it is for a second. It is irrelevant what I would do. I'm not the caller. It is irrelevant what I would do because I am not God. God in the office of God has perfect, and he's the only being who has the perfect justification to punish criminals. In God's kingdom, sins are crimes, and criminals deserve to be punished. This is ridiculous, that this question has nothing to do with. Now imagine for a second, Bob, you're God Almighty, supremely moral and righteous, and you're in the presence of a sinner. What would it take to punish them? It would take them being a sinner. And if God so chooses that eternal torment is the appropriate punishment, then it is the appropriate punishment. Because he's God and the God of office, he can decide that. Just like the American court system, the court system or this Congress, whomever, gets to decide what the appropriate mandatory minimums. Who do you think you are? Mandatory minimums. Who made you God? We even say expression like that. Who made you God? No one made God God. He is God, and he decides what's mandatory minimum. He gets to decide that. And most people don't get upset when they have crimes, have a punishment, whatever. Everyone knows, yeah, you deserve it. That's unfortunate. What a bad analogy. Okay.
I see this sign here. It says God is pro-life. What does that mean?
God is pro-life?
Yeah.
That's just what it means, yes. God
Okay, there what
created life.
Didn't God kill?
Yeah, pro-life, first of all, I don't say God is pro-life. I mean, that's not my expression. I wouldn't use the expression. What that means is God is pro allowing innocent people that he deems innocent the ability to live. That is to say, God is anti-homicide. He's anti-homicide. That's what it means to be pro-life. So he's going to set up, of course, that, pro-life means universal. Now I'm going to give you any example in the Bible where God, and in God's office of God, has the right to take any life he wants, and it's not homicide, because God does what he does. It's always right. God doesn't obey a moral law above him. He decides what the moral law is. And when God is judge, he has the absolute right, once again, to punish criminals. And so you don't have indiscriminate killing in the Bible by God. Every single time it's happened, it's because they were horrible, wretched sinners. It's like they all went to prison. Death is when your soul just leaves one position to another location. That's all it is. God moves these people. He moves them. He takes away the life on earth and puts a life somewhere else. It's the somewhere else that can be punishment or not. And he has the right to punish people. The jail isn't on this earth for everyone. He can move them when he wants. So here, the guy can around the earth except for Noah.
Kill everybody on earth except for Noah and some farm animals on an ark?
No.
I'm sorry.
Didn't God kill everybody on earth?
No, he did not. Never. At no point has God ever killed. No.
I see this sign here. It says God.
Yeah, no. At no point ever did God kill everyone on earth. That's the answer. The answer is no, he did not. And did he kill everybody but farm animals? No, that's not true. And if you read the Noah story in Genesis before, I wish you'd quote stuff. Here's another one.
My hottest political take is that the pro-life people who...
What does that mean, my hottest political take?
Right.
What does that
Most
mean?
divisive.
My son needs to teach me. What? Most divisive? Most... My
What's
most
your hottest take? What's the one that's people won't touch with 10-foot pole?
hottest take. Oh, what's the opinion that's the most
Divisive.
invidious or divisive? Okay. So people who are so worried...
about pro-life things are the same people who are not worried about gun regulation, who are not worried about keeping children safe in schools, and are not worried about welfare programs or any programs that benefit the child's life once they are here. They are only concerned about them when they are in the womb. My hottest...
I'll assume that's true. I've never met a person in my life, I've never heard of a person in my entire life who fits that description, ever. I'm pretty old, I've been around a lot of places, I've never heard of that ever. But let's assume that's true. What difference does that make? What follows from that logically follows that? What does it follow from that logically that it is now moral to hire an assassin to kill a baby in my womb? I am morally justified to kill innocent human life as long as I care about welfare and protecting kids in school. I have the right to go around to find. That is what I can't figure out what conceivable difference that makes. It changes the subject, but I can't see it. Here's another one.
God is a myth.
Well, that's according to you.
No. You see,
I mean, there are
because
others of us running around who think that he or she is there.
yes, but if you believe there's a tree outside and there's no tree outside, you are the one who is fooled with your belief.
When God smites you with...
But that's true. Right, that'd be a delusion. So delusion is, well, you have a firm belief in something that is demonstrably false, that you can prove without a shadow of doubt by the group around you. That's right. That would be a delusion. That's exactly right. That's right. So if we thought God the Father was a tree outside, and there is no tree, that's right. It's like saying, I believe in Santa Claus, and I went to North Pole and he wasn't there, and I still believe in him. That'd be silly. That's how you prove a negative. That's how you prove a negative. There is no cell phone in my hand. Prove it. There he goes. I proved a negative. That's right. But no Christian thinks that God is a being outside you go check on right now. No one does. So this is a typical strawman argument.
With his sword, and that moment comes and you believe, you are going to be.
I don't have to worry.
Yeah, I don't. Man, when Christians or theists, maybe Muslims do this too, Jews, I don't know. But when Christians, I don't know if this person's Christian, I don't know. But when Christians say in response, like a guy did on Bill Maher, man, don't blame me when time comes. It's like when someone laughs at it and your response is basically, boy, when you go to hell, don't get mad at me. I mean, I guess there's truth in that there could be a dire consequence, but I can't fathom saying that in conversation. What person's going to find that persuasive all of a sudden? I mean, does it work with you if Muslims say that to you if you're not a Muslim and say, hey, man, I was going to see you burn forever in hell. Okay, what do I sign up? I mean, I guess that works for certain people, but Christians, man, we can do a better job than that, than just threatening them with hell. That seems so unfruitful. That just seems unfruitful.
Jesus Christ. What do you think of Jesus Christ?
Mythological, never had any historical existence at all.
What are you going to do about all those books, the Bible?
Oh, come on. This is a bunch of junk. I think that it should be thrown in a trash can. The idea of God, angels.
Yeah. Anybody who says that whatsoever ever knows they don't know anything about Christianity. That's just the fact of the matter. I've talked about this in so many podcasts and videos. It's just demonstrably false to think that those things are myth. I've heard Ben Shapiro talk about the New Testament should be in the fiction section. I mean, that's just gibberish. I mean, that's nonsense. For such a smart guy, that's a really dumb thing to say. There's no serious scholar on the planet who would concur with this. And so when someone says that, if someone said to me, and if someone said, oh, it's all myth, it's all make-believe, and that's happened to me when I've had conversation, I go, well, what I say in response is, why do you think that? I'm curious, why do you think it? Well, it just is. What's your evidence that it's a myth? The genre of myth. What do you mean by the word myth? And what's your evidence that if it's the genre? And when I say it, I mean all 26 books of the New Testament. What's your evidence that all 26 books fit in the category of fictional myth? And are you using myth in definition of modern terms or first century terms? How did you come to that conclusion? Which books did you read, Deb? Who are your favorite scholars? It never gets that far. I found in my experience with non-believers, you're always 2 questions into a dead end. In Christians, it might be worse. Why do you think that? Christians, I don't know. All I'm saying, it works both ways.
Do you know who this is?
But yeah, this is Madeline O'Hare, right? Yeah. This is, anyway, yeah. She can have the view. So far, that's silly. Okay. The idea of God, angels.
Heaven, hell, all of these things are nonsense terms.
Well, you grew up in a home where there was religion. What caused you to go in the other direction?
Read the Bible. It's a bunch of junk. It's sadomasochistic. It's...
I don't know if she knows what the term sadomasochist is. Give me what in the world?
Oh, you
it's
must
ugly.
Because it's brutal, it's false? I mean, so all news reports on the planet every single evening are false because it talked about the time of this recording there were shootings in New Orleans and a guy ran over people. Well, that's false. It's false because it's brutal. All news is false. It is. Come on.
So angry when you say.
So things are false because people have the emotional state of angry? So when she gets angry, does she cease to exist? Does what she said become false when she gets angry?
That though, huh?
But it's so true. The Old Testament is brutal and ugly, disgusting, loathsome.
Why would an atheist say such things? Says who? If you're right, you're just an evolved chimp. What gives you moral superiority to call any of it bad? Why would you call just fiction versus brutal and ugly? Do you call brutal and ugly a make-believe story? That wouldn't make any sense. And again, if you're just an evolved chimp, you're assuming a place of moral superiority. But there's no moral law if you're right. So there's nothing brutal about it. It's just the way it is. Yeah, to kill people. Yeah, well, whatever.
Don't believe or don't accept the ideas of God, heaven, hell, prayer, life after death.
That's fine.
And we're adamant in our position because we feel that those ideas are stupid. So you're having trouble on the job. Pray and see if it goes away. So you're unemployed here in Detroit. Pray and see if it goes away. God is a myth.
Well, that's according to you.
No.
That's fine. You can believe it's a myth. That's fine. And you can, if people write things stupid, I think certain things are stupid. That's fine. In fact, I wrote a book that gives all the reasons why I think Christianity is true, and I address these kinds of issues and exactly what you said. Here's the book. I encourage you to read it. This is why I wrote A Skeptic Challenges a Christian on Amazon.com. It covers all the main reasons why I think Christianity is true. This book will help you answer questions you've had for a long time. But something that's different about this book is the way it's written. I wrote this book to read like a pretend conversation, because it is like a pretend conversation. Like if you eavesdrop on a conversation between me and a skeptic, and the skeptic just drills me with questions over and over. Why do you believe that? Why do you believe that? Why do you believe that? And that's how I wrote this. So it reads like a dialogue. It doesn't read like a normal book, and it's more fast-paced, and I think it's more entertaining. This book is perfect for individual studies and for small groups. So get yours today on Kindle or paperback or an audiobook. All right, here's another one by old Richard Dawkins. I call him Rick, old friend Richard. Now, in all fairness, I hate the fact, not hate it, I'm jealous of the British accent. I'm an Anglophile, and I just love British accent. And I remember when I first started listening to Richard Dawkins, I thought, oh, I wanted to like him so much because he seems so nice and British, but he's so rude. But anyway, we'll see what he says.
What do you think happens when you die?
As Bertrand Russell said, I believe that when I die, I shall rot, and nothing of my ego shall remain.
That's it.
Well, technically, no, you won't rot. Your corpse will rot. Not even your corpse, because there's no you in materialism. It's just the body that's talking there and being driven by the laws of physics. So you won't be rotting, but this wet bag of synapses and skin proteins and flesh will be rotting. Yeah.
Yes.
The end. Nothing. There's nothing else.
How could it be otherwise? I mean, you have a brain, an evolved brain, which works by nerve impulses, and when that decays, what could possibly be left?
So you
I mean, how could you possibly? What a perfect example of materialism. So again, if he's heard all this before, I don't know if whatever, but all this. So what could possibly exist besides your brain? Now, this is from a guy who spent his entire adult career believing in a scientific method. Where is that in his brain? He believes in using logic. Where is that in his brain? I'm sure he believes in morality. He does. He wrote books on how we should be nice to people. Where are moral values in his brain? He's debating or having conversation. He's assuming the guy in front of him is actually reasoning or and he's using language and all linguistics and all. Where's that in the brain? The point is he's assuming, he's appealing to logic and mathematics and scientific and beauty and morality. None of those things are in the brain. None of those are. Those are philosophical views. Those are logical views that exist outside of a person. If they don't, then why do all humans appeal to them? So, not to mention, there's millions of examples of near-death experiences of people who have died and come back, and they do exist. And so, if someone says to me, and some have, to me I just think that they're ignorant. Ignorant just means without knowledge. They're just ignorant. They haven't read enough. Or they've read and they're overwhelmingly closed-minded. And that's fine. You can be closed-minded. That's fine. So when people when the interviewer, when he says, you don't believe in this and whatever, of course that's also his take. He's on TV and he drills them. I'd encourage you, if you're Christian, I don't drill people. If they go, I don't believe anything at all, we all just died, and okay, I might go, why do you think that? But I don't keep, are you sure? I mean, I like, you're not interrogating them. Now, I know this is a TV interview, but in real world, I wouldn't interrogate a person.
You don't believe in, for example, a spirit or a soul. None of that that's all conditional entirely on a link to an actual cerebral...
Yes, if by spirit or soul you mean something that outlasts the brain, then I do not believe in it, no.
Really?
Really? That's just standard materialism. He's a materialist.
Well, how could I?
Well, people have gone through...
This is where self-defeating. If you're a naturalist, then all the brain processes that we have are ruled over by the laws of physics, which means that's a form of what we call in philosophy determinism. And that's it, which means he has no other choice but to believe that there's nothing outside of death. Because the laws of physics, which started billions of years ago and run the universe to this place, has made him believe that. But he doesn't believe that. He thinks he believes something true. That's why he spent his entire adult career writing books trying to persuade people that atheism is better than all the religions. So that's what's self-refuting. He's being driven for his beliefs by the laws of physics, but all the while he's behaving like he's not being determined.
Weird sort of out-of-body near-death experiences where they've been pronounced dead for a few minutes. They always talk about, almost all of them talk about this weird...
There's a tunnel with light at the end.
Yeah, so, I mean, it could be, couldn't it?
Yes, well, read Susan Blackmore on that.
What do you think happens when you die?
Yeah, I've read Susan. I've seen her videos. Yes, Susan, just like him, she's a materialist. She thinks it's all just nonsense and there's no evidence for this. You read the stuff and she looked at a couple examples and there's not corroborating evidence. Man, she is absolutely completely wrong and way behind the data. And Dawkins apparently is here too. He's decades behind the data. There are enormous amount of literature out there right now on this topic that demonstrates people don't merely see a tunnel. They learn new knowledge while they're dead. Not for a few minutes, sometimes a few minutes, sometimes it's hours. They come back learning things they did not know before. They don't just see old memories. They don't just see old flashbacks of the past. That occurs, this end-of-life review. They meet dead loved ones. Blind people see, from birth, blind, see, but they come back describing physical objects they have never seen before. People deaf from birth come back describing what it meant to hear something for the first time ever. After they're dead. Why is that? Why is it when the brain stops working and their heart stops pumping and they're flatlined for minutes or hours, all of a sudden they're fully capable of all their competencies? Why is that? What conceivable materialistic explanation could you give for that? And anything you say otherwise besides this is clear evidence that where materialism is false is you're just closed-minded and you don't want it to be true. You need to look at the evidence. Read, and there are popular level books you can read on this. Popular level books like Evidence of the Afterlife. Let's start there. Start with Evidence of the Afterlife. That's your simple, easy book. There's so many out there to read, and you make up your own mind. But I'm telling you, this stuff, people come back with brand new knowledge. It changes their lives. It's not just a tunnel and a white light. And most of them are positive. Some are very, very negative. And it scares hell scares them silly. Dawkins doesn't have to believe that. That's fine. I just encourage you, if you're even slightly more minded than Richard Dawkins, go read the books and then decide. All right, here's another one. I was talking. If prayer worked, hospitals would be empty. Why? Why would you think that? What conceivable reason would you think that's true? Predicated upon what moral injunction by God, what biblical preference says that if prayer worked, hospitals would be empty? Like, why would you think such a silly thing? That would be like even the ministry of Jesus, that if Jesus really existed, there would have been no sick people in Galilee. That's demonstrably false. He actually sometimes left the crowds. Jesus didn't walk around starting hospitals. He didn't go to a healing. He was not a Benny Hinn. The Benny Hinn is a fraud. Jesus wasn't a... Why would you think that? What makes you think that if every time... that this picture of God being a cosmic genie is so pervasive in our culture, it's a real shame. It's a real shame because he's not a cosmic genie who wants to make sure that his little baby pets never suffer, and that the entire point of existence is for happiness and pleasure for as long as, quote, as is natural. If this were 100 years ago, it would have been 20, 30 years, fewer years than it is now. But as long as they live their natural life and don't have any toothaches or any pain ever whatsoever, ever, then God loves them. That's just simply not biblical. That might be a different religion, but it's not Christian religion whatsoever. So that statement is, I would say, why do you think that? What's your evidence? Because it's not biblical whatsoever, and it's not even based on theological philosophy. Isn't it strange that we still rely on science and medicine while pretending divine intervention will solve our problems? I don't think it's strange whatsoever. I don't think it's strange because it's simply this bifurcation that materialists make you choose between science or this stupid pie-in-the-sky fairy tale crap is an absolute false dilemma. It's a bifurcation that is false. It just doesn't make any sense. You need to read literature on this. There's so much literature. I'm a voracious reader. I just finished a book last night. Stories of a guy he's a physician, and he said over 100 of his medical professional friends and said, what are some stories that you might tell? Some reported anonymously, others give their name and blah, 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 David Pendergrass, MD, whatever. He has a whole bio at the end of all of them. And they tell the stories, I think, that happened for surgeries, before, during, and after surgeries. It is unbelievable. And none of it can be complained by just science. And so it's ridiculous. Ask most normal surgeons, ask them if they choose between science or prayer. religious Christian, Muslim, and Jewish doctor, physician will all the time pray before they do surgery. Anyway, they do that, and they have stories that prove something amazing. I mean, one story comes right to mind that I just read last night. I cried when I read it. Is that this woman was such bad shape of multiple sclerosis, she stayed in a constant fetal position, and this guy worked. He was the primary care physician for 10 years. And she's lying in bed one Sunday afternoon that he expected to live another week or two at tops, because she had tubes out of her throat, bowel movement. She was hooked up to tubes 24/7, an electric wheelchair, could barely speak. She heard a man's voice behind her in bed that said, "My child, I say get up and walk." She told her two friends, "Go get my parents, go get my parents." She jumps out of the bed, rips off the things, and starts walking around and dancing around the room. Her mom comes down and falls to the ground. She grabs the woman's calf muscle because you have muscle. She had walked in years. All the muscles had atrophied. The very next day happened to be a Monday, and she met that physician. She came in the hallway. He said, "I thought I was seeing a ghost." Went through all the tests, took her off of all of her medications, did all the MRIs and CAT scans necessary. Her one lung has been completely collapsed, was completely healed. Multiple sclerosis, all was completely healed. And she's still alive and kicking and completely healed of everything. Physicians tell that. And it's the physicians who tell these stories, go, I can do so much. Praise God we have physicians who do so much. It's fantastic. But this false bifurcation between the two is just silly. And it's unnecessary. It's just unnecessary. Whew, deep breath. All right, here's another one. That's pretty funny, though. Short-circuiting. There's a great movie in the 80s. It had some language in it, but it's like a cute, charming 80s movie called Short Circuit. If you're too young, you won't know what that is. But what did you say? Number 5 is alive. You got to watch Short Circuit 1 and 2 came out. Anyway, when you ask them to explain how humans can have free will if we are born sinful and evil by default. Okay, well, I'm a Christian, and I don't think you'll see me short circuit whatsoever. I'll answer your question. I'll see a few things. One is that a significant portion of Christians on the globe disagree completely with your belief. You have to be a Roman Catholic, particularly to believe what's called original sin, that we're born evil by default. Original sin is the belief that Adam's sin nature passed down genetically, and so not only are we sinful by default by birth, we also bear Adam's guilt. And a bunch of other Christians, I don't know, a billion or so, disagree with that and say, well, we're sinful, but we don't inherit original sin. In fact, we're just born. At best, we're neutral. But it's very clear that humans, in fact, do sin. So that's what I would say is I don't think we're born evil. I think we're born, but it's clear that humans do, in fact, sin. But how do we have free will? That I would say is I just need to, I guess, educate you for a moment. Free will in typical philosophical terms is understood as a will that is not coerced or forced by an outside force or presence. So that is to say, it's not outside coerced. It's not as if someone grabbed my hand and made me do it. A will is free like that, and only like that. That's all that's necessary or sufficient to be free. Free will does not mean, therefore, anything else, which means it doesn't mean not influenced by. It means not controlled by, not manipulated by an overriding sense. And so that's the answer. So how can I have free will if we're born sinful? Because they're irrelevant. That's the answer to the question is it's irrelevant. See, I'm not short-circuiting. It's irrelevant. I can be sinful and still have the capacity to make my choices. I mean, it just doesn't follow whatsoever. I have a free will, but I'm also a Caucasian. I'm a white man. I'm also from the South. I also have a particular history in my past, and I see the world through my lens because I'm only myself, and I have all of my education, experience, trauma, and victories to come to bear. Every decision, including this very moment, this very second. And I'm still using my will freely to decide what to do with the knowledge I have, experience I have, education I have, including the part of me that wants to sin. I still have the choice. And when I choose to sin, I've chosen to sin. If you want me to say more about that topic, let me know in the comments. Let me know if there's a particular subject matter you want me to expound on. I'll do my best to reflect on it. Here's another one. I'm learning more now on these reels that what's that, like the silent pondering Is it like a sarcasm pose, like when she's staring out?
I couldn't tell you.
I don't know. There's got to be a word for
This whole paragraph that would during day.
Growing up religion. Say, POV, you realize men created God because they couldn't accept that women create life.
Yep.
I mean, that solves it. I mean, that's the answer to everything. This is a typical example of something I'm going to do in a different video called Bulverism. C.S. Lewis made up that term. And that's when you're not trying to discredit an idea in our argument. You assume the view is already false and then attempt to explain how they came to hold the belief. And that is ubiquitous. It is plenary in our society. It's been around for decades and decades, which is why, maybe longer, why Lewis even coined the term back, of course, in the 40s, early 50s. This idea that we know that religion or God, believing in God, is all make-believe. But where did it come from? Oh, but that's the assumption. You just assume it's all false, and you have to explain where it came from. And that's cute. My question to this little Riding Hood, I guess that's kind of fun. I'm sure she's sweet, pretty girl. I would ask the question, why do you think all this? Why do you think men created gods? I mean, what's your evidence that men created gods? How do you know women didn't create gods? How do you know men and women didn't create gods? How do you know that animals didn't? What's your evidence for that? And two, what's your evidence that they created them? What does that mean to create them? Because I don't know if you know what the word create means. Create means to bring out of nothing, from a state of nothing to bring it. So humans don't create. We use that word loosely. We invent things. We don't create things. The God that you think men made up, only that God creates things. Humans only invent. And this idea that where do you get the evidence that men did it because they're going to accept the women create life? I mean, I get it's cute stuff. I don't know. I'm curious about the paragraph there. Growing up, religion always felt ... off to me. I'm sorry to hear that. As an autistic ADHDer, I'm sorry to hear that too, I guess.
Nailed read all this.
I've always needed autonomy, freedom to think, to question, to understand things on my own terms. I agree. I agree that's healthy to want autonomy, freedom to think. I think it's fantastic. I think it's very healthy. But religion, it came with so many rules that made no sense to me. And that's sad. I don't know what religion you're talking about. I don't know, but that's sad that you ever thought or encountered a religious view that has so many rules. That's unfortunate. They tell me to believe in something because that's just how it is, or it's in the book, and I'd be sitting there like, why? LOL. I think it's fantastic that you ask questions. I'm a huge advocate for asking questions. I think that's okay. A lot of people are not. A lot of Christians are scared of questions. I've heard that. That makes me sad. And these are another example of why it makes me sad that this kind of stuff happens. Then there's how everything seems so male-centered. God, male. Okay, so, yeah, if you mean Christianity or even Islam or Judaism, I'll speak for Christians. The reason why God is presented as male is not because he has the genome for a male, the chromosome pattern for a male on earth. Male is a metaphor. And the reason why Jews like to use the male metaphor is because they were contrasting God, Yahweh, with the foreign gods around them, the pagan gods around them. They had god and goddesses, and then those goddesses, they would have sex, or the goddess would bear birth and birth out races, civilizations, or planets, and so forth. And the Jews are very emphatic that Yahweh did not birth out humans. And so that's why, again, it's one of the main reasons that we're not like those gods. The other reason, of course, is God himself presents himself in masculine-like ways in ancient Judaism, in that he protects Israel, he provides for them, he disciplines them, he educates them. Those are all chief roles of a male in ancient Jewish society, and so they prefer the word male. They can use female metaphors for God. They don't have a problem using female metaphors. There are not many of them. But that's why. It's not because he's a man. That's the biblical, at least. Prophets, mostly male. With the Christians, they were always male. And the people making the rules, male. But where would humanity even be without the ability to create life? Again, so honoring that history, rewrote the narrative. I don't know what that means. All of a sudden, from the Bible to some rewriting narrative, men created God, gave them all the power, and left out the fact that image with uteruses, not just women, because not all women can or want to birth. Not all birth givers are women. I don't know what that means. I mean, I don't know. Oh, I get the gender stuff. All the literal creator of life. Yes, I mean, I disagree with every word of that. I do think only women have uteruses. I don't think women should be called birth givers. And also in your post, you said you realize men created God because they couldn't accept that women create life. I wonder why would you say something so insensitive and rude to these birth givers? Why didn't you say accept that birth givers create life? And if you say, the reason why you can't say birth givers, because it breaks your false dichotomy between men versus women, which you were trying to separate. But you'd have to have birth versus birth givers. And how do you know men created God? What if they identified as women? What if they identified as furries? I mean, what's your evidence? That's the problem is with this kind of wokeism. It just goes down the slippery slope of gibberish. But anyway, I do think that oftentimes women are not given the appropriate due. That's exactly right. I love the fact that Jesus gave women absolute honor and respect. And I mean, you look at the evidence for that. It's all through the gospel. Jesus treated women with enormous respect and care and love, and treated them with dignity and equality. And I love that about Jesus. I know it can be very difficult to know exactly how to understand what Jesus taught. And so I wrote this book to help you. Rediscover Jesus, I think, is a fantastic, accessible source to help you understand the teachings of Jesus within a historical context. What did he mean when he said those things? What are the main things Jesus taught? Secondly, how do I apply it to today? This book will help you do both. It will help you understand what Jesus said to his first century Jewish audience and how to bridge the gap between then and now. This is a fantastic book for small groups or individual studies. It's in paperback, Kindle version, and an audiobook recorded by yours truly. If you would like bulk orders of this for many people, let me know and I'll give you a special discount. Go right now to Amazon.com, get your copy today of Rediscover Jesus. Here's another one. If your kids are old enough to learn about a 12-year-old Virgin Mary getting impregnated while betrothed to a 30-year-old carpenter, they're old enough to hear that Josh has 2 moms. Okay. I mean, I hear you. I mean, first I would say is, I hear, where does it say that Mary was 12 years old? Obviously you must have heard this, or you're just making this up. The text never says the age of Mary, and so there's no reason to think that she was 12. It is true that from the epigraphical evidence and some other literary evidence, we know that Jewish women at the time period were almost certainly early to mid-teenagers on, so they have to be almost certainly would have passed puberty. So 13, 14 to about 17, 18 is probably a prime age, and the Jewish males are probably in the early 20s. They've been maybe 25. There might have been an 8 to 10 year gap depending on the average marriage at that time period, but we don't know that she's 12, and we don't know that he was 30 either. Well, to say if they're old enough to learn about it, right, so people can be old enough to learn about truth of history. The reason why a person might make the argument that it's not old enough to hear that Josh has 2 moms is because it's immoral. And one is based on fact and truth, and one is not based on fact and truth in the Christian worldview. In the Christian worldview, it's true that a virgin was betrothed to a man named Joseph and that had baby Jesus. In the Christian worldview, what's not true in the Christian worldview is that you can have 2 moms, and illegitimately, but also biologically, you can't have 2 moms. That you can't do that. It's impossible. And so that's why we don't tell Josh, because it's religiously false nonsense and it's biologically false nonsense. But the other one is true, and that's the distinction. That's a big distinction. Republican abortion is wrong. So immediately I think, oh man, I just wish we could have discussions about morality without being labeled instantaneous. What difference does it make if Republicans think that or Democrats, liberal? I mean, what difference? If abortion is wrong, then it is actually wrong. That's a moral statement, regardless of your particular political views. But okay, yep, a lot of Republicans think abortion is wrong. That's true. Yep. Liberal, my body, my choice. So let's be real clear about that. What you're saying is it's my body, therefore I choose to have another body killed in me. My body, my choice to hire an assassin to kill a baby in me. And to that I say, no, you don't. You have the choice, but that choice is both immoral and illegal. Illegal. In fact, in the United States of America, it is illegal even to approach a person to have someone assassinated. If I pretended to be an assassin, and you came to me and said, I want to pay you $5,000 to go kill my son, and I didn't do it, and I reported, you go to jail just to have the talk. That's a plan, but not if you're a baby. If you're a baby, you can have the conversation and be chopped up in pieces in a heartbeat. So it is your choice, but if you do that, you've hired an assassin that's both profoundly, disgustingly immoral, and it is illegal as well. In the Constitution, I'm not saying that's the current law now. In certain states, you can kill your baby, or have someone kill your baby, rather. They're saying it should be, if they're being consistent. Liberal, you can't be in here without a mask on. My body, my choice. Right. Instantaneously, it's a disanalogous, instantaneous. One is my capacity to hire an assassin to kill an innocent baby inside of me. The other is my body. They're very different points of view. very different. One is, don't murder that baby inside of you. One is, can you wear a mask? So that is absolutely unrelated. But you could kill an innocent person. I rest my case. No, liberals, you can't kill an innocent person. If I have a particular illness that spreads through my sneezing or breathing and someone else gets the virus and they die, I'm not morally culpable. I did not kill the person. I didn't kill them. That doesn't follow whatsoever in any moral system. I'm not morally culpable if a virus spreads through me. No, I'm not. To have an abortion means I willfully go hire a person to rip off the arms and legs of my fetus and throw my baby into a trash bag. That is radically different than if a virus spreads through my sneeze. That's a horrible analogy. And I get worked up because it's so disgusting. Abortion is disgusting and horrible. I can't believe. I will say this. To me, it's one of the signs of how absolutely disgusted, corrupted our culture has become, that we fight for the right, not to party, but to rip apart babies in a womb. What's the extra layer of disgust, the extra icing on the disgusting, sinful cake, is that moms make the argument. Moms make the argument. That a mother, this deeply innate, inchoate sense of nurturing and love and safety and warmth a mom gives to a child, has now been corrupted where they can't wait to go kill their baby inside. I cannot think of something more demonic than that and more twisted. I can't think of something more twisted. That's worse than a priest molesting a child. That's worse than that. It's that twisted. There's nothing more in normal state, pure and loving and kind and gentle than a mother's love toward an infant. And we have women beating the streets. I saw one with a t-shirt on that said, I've had like 4 abortions, 6 abortions, celebrating murdering their kids. God help us. God help us.
I would never worship a god. They would send someone to an eternal lake of fire to be burned forever for the simple fact of non-belief, when that deity knows what it would take to convince every single person on this planet. That is cruel, it is inhumane, it is not kind, it is not generous, and that is not a god worthy of worship. I would never worship.
I agree, I wouldn't either. I agree, I wouldn't worship that kind of God either. It's not the Christian view whatsoever. Everything you just said is not the Christian view. Christians didn't argue the New Testament. Jesus never said, ever, everyone rots in torture in hell forever because you simply don't believe. No, and that's not what he meant in John 3 either. So don't quote John 3. You misunderstood completely John 3 if you want to. That's not the point at all. Not believing something is not why people get punished. So I won't even respond. But that's fine. Well, now I will say this other thing. I say it all the time is, I will never, that's inhumane. What does that mean? You're an evolved chimp with a cool mustache. This moral superiority of claiming down this, I would never, I'm much better than that. Where does better come from? If we're on a speck of dust in the middle, where does better, says who? You? You? What makes you any better than a Christian? All right, here's done. Can an all-powerful God create a rock so heavy even he can't lift it? If yes, he is an all-powerful. Yeah, that's right. I can't. I'm laughing. I can't believe this stuff makes social media. Someone took the time and the spinning it around. I can't believe, and all the hashtag atheist, skepticism, extra. So this is standard. It's a standard response to what we call a great making property and called perfect being theology, which is made most well known by a guy named Anselm. Now he didn't make it up, but he's the most well known advocate for it. But other people later on, Thomas Aquinas, others picked up on it. So in great making properties of a perfect being theology states God is omnipresent, all the good, all. So one is powerful. And since they're so, people have responded to perfect being theology by challenging each of these omnis, all this, all this, all this. And so if he's omnipotent, all powerful, they say, well, what about this? Let's think of a scenario where can God create a rock so heavy he can't even lift it? Respectfully. An intro, if you had a decent professor, intro to philosophy 101, you realize this is what's called a category error. This is not a way to demonstrate perfect being theology is false. God doesn't lift things. God's power is not demonstrated in perfect being theology by what he lifts, because God the Father doesn't lift things. So this is what's embarrassing. It's silly. God doesn't go around like a He-Man lifting rocks. It doesn't make any sense.
Or a Muslim or a Jew, something to chew on. If God is omnipotent and omniscient and knows the future, you do not have free will. Everything.
Okay, that's a very common fallacious point. It does not follow logically whatsoever that if God knows the future, I do not have free will. You need to demonstrate how logically those are incompatible. You can't, because it is not. They're absolutely irrelevant. God knows what we will freely choose. It has nothing to do with making my choices. This is a simple, well, it's a fallacy on your part. And everybody who studies this knows this. This is introductory stuff in books. So, no, I disagree with you. It does not follow logically at all.
Everything you do in the future is either controlled by him because he's all-powerful, or everything you do in the future is already known because he has already planned.
Yeah, no, I disagree with you. That also doesn't follow. At least in perfect being theology and Christianity, it does not. That's not at all all-powerful. All-powerful does not mean he controls all things. It means there is no power above him. He's the head coach. And in Christianity, most Christians believe, and I'm one of them, Jesus certainly believed this, humans have the freedom of the will. God in his great power has relinquished to us the capacity not to do what he wants us to do. So it doesn't follow at all. This is a false dilemma, and I have considered this very much so. I don't find this mass crusader, anti-prophet persuasive at all. And the last part, if I were to make my own morals...
you a ventriloquist with no freedom, no agency of your own.
If determinism were true, that'd be right. If God did determine everything we said and thought, and there are certain Calvinists who do think that is determinism. I agree, that's ventriloquism, and I agree with that if that's determinism. But nothing you've said so far is determinism.
You are a slave with no ability to make your own choices. Now, I don't say this to primarily criticize your religion. I say this to simply ask, what if you rejected this mentality and...
Yeah, I have, because this is silly. I've rejected everything you've said because it doesn't make any sense.
Put forth the energy to create your own morals, your own values. What?
Okay, when you say that, then also know that we have very different definitions of moral values. Humans don't create moral values, we discover them. And if you think we do make them, then you mean by moral values something no moral philosopher means. What you mean are preferences. Like I like ice cream a certain flavor or something. Moral values are discovered like mathematical truths, period. And so this whole false dichotomy, like, I make up my own moral values, it doesn't mean you don't make up moral values. You don't make up new colors and new keys on the keyboard. It doesn't happen. They're discovered. So that stuff is sad. There's so much there that's false.
Good morning. My name is Glitch, and if this video found you, that means you were meant to be here. Today, I will be giving you some light codes for activation and remembrance of your true self. If you choose to accept, type yes in the comments, or even just nod your head and say yes. If not, you can scroll away, or you don't even have to accept the energies here. But here we go. Suola sakanya sana posolo kotsiataka. Yana sino bolosenia kapoala sataka ina pasiono kosiela. Yakatashala sana ketipua nasana.
I don't know what you just said, but now all the dishes in my kitchen are floating. And people are so hungry for meaning outside of themselves. It's the human condition. Even hardcore atheists, it's part of the human condition. We are designed to want something more than just work. And work and just play and drugs and sex and rock and roll. We want more than this. And that's why this stuff makes it. And I feel empathy for people who really want there's something to be out there. I'm sad that it's this kind of gibberish. I hope that he gives himself to Jesus, read the Gospels and so forth. But it reminds me, people are hungry for meaning and purpose. They're hungry for it. That's all for now. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. My voice is going out because I'm recovering from an illness, but I hope you've enjoyed so far. Let me know your thoughts. Write yes in the comments. That'd be pretty funny. Write yes in the comments. Let me know if there's any videos or Instagram reels to which you want me to respond. I'll do my best. God bless you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.